This is Ambazonia Calling. News, analysis, commentary, opinion, editorials. Ambazonia Calling is a co-production of Africa Freedom Network, the Missions Tribune, and Compass Free Press. Welcome. My name is Ntumfoyn Herbert, and I bring revolutionary greetings from our studios in Washington, D.C. to all of you, friends of Ambazonia and fellow Ambazonians on Ground Zero and across the globe.
Five Nigerians are among 9 civilians brutally terrorized, bludgeoned, and subsequently killed by Biafra terrorist forces in Kongo, MANYU State in Ambazonia. I am innocent here.
Ambazonians have been working the U.S. Congress, but it is the Cameroonese who are cashing in. Check them out at Nyamfuka. This is Veronique Vetimfe.
With each passing day, the Ambazonia restoration quest looks increasingly set to beat the South Sudan record in fractious factions. This is Lambert Mbom.
The beating of the return to school drums is certainly getting louder in the Republic of Cameroon. But is there much to it? Or is it just what it is? Noise. This is Divine Angel.
We citizens of Ambazonia firmly believe it is more than time for the global community to recognize Ambazonia. This is the monk.
The BOYO regime has clearly used religious divides and the fight against Boko Haram to advance its bloodthirstiness and other nefarious agenda. This is Siaji Ambe.
The schools that teach our children geography, history, French, and English literature and French literature are a colonial joke, and that joke ends with the end of the colonial experiment Ambazonians are fighting to demolish. This is Divine Angel.
This is edition number 058 of Ambazonia Calling, coming to you this 4th day of August 2019.
Oh, freedom, freedom is coming, freedom is coming. Freedom is coming, oh yes, freedom.
Editorial is Lambert Mbom is going to start us off this Sunday as usual. He's got our editorial for the week, and as he says, it is not a good thing when Tico drink, Kumba drunk.
A revolution is like the biblical parable of the sower. Not all seeds will fall on good soil. Not all seeds will grow. The Ambazonian restoration quest faces many dangers threatening to choke it to death. They include the spaghetti bowl of liberation movements, the long choir of surrogates and activists, each a commander and a policymaker at the same time. Then there are the fake and the true Amber boys, the petty thieves and hardened criminals using the revolution to make a quick buck. Then there are the wannabe presidents, vice presidents and ministers in the jails of La République, in the diaspora, and anywhere in between. There are the ransom takers who would not be too afraid to take even God hostage if they thought God would pay up. Bishops, priests, and pastors are good for abduction. Grandmothers, like the 80-year-old mother of Comrade Chris Anu, along with his junior sister, were victims this week, right there in the heart of the colonial capital, directed by the animals who call themselves the government. The diaspora is fighting Ground Zero and vice versa. Seemingly united groups like the SCLC, ARC, speak from both sides of their mouth on issues of utmost importance. By word of mouth, a group like AGOV-C welcomes the Swiss-led process, but hey, shows no sign that endorsement means a change in policy. This is the only revolution where the wheat is also the weed, where the sower would not know whether it is better to gather up, dry and burn up the wheat, or it may make a better bonfire to make the wheat itself, the value to the revolution of wheat and wheat being strangely the same. With each passing day, the Ambazonia restoration quest looks increasingly set to beat the South Sudan record in fractious factions. The mere mention of the word unity seems to produce the same cacophony of sauve-qui-peut in the Ambazonian struggle that the hungry fox running around in the hen house produces: pandemonium. While Ambazonians fight each other, guess what? The Maurice Camptos of La République are breaking all copyright rules in staging their own takumbangs on Capitol Hill. Even when Ambazonians are the ones who lead a riot in jail and pay a heavy price for doing so, the fruit yields dividend to the Campto camp. It is a Campto man, Patrice Ganang, who is using the Ambazonian genocide to campaign for regime change in the neighboring La République where there is no genocide. Balok. Talk of Tico drink, Kumba drunk. Monkey the walk, baboon the chop. I swear. This is Lambert Mbom for Ambazonia Calling.
What Cameroon has done to us, I want you never to forget. The pain they have brought to bear on this generation, I want you never to forget. Not out of hate, but so that the next generation will remember and make sure they do the things they are supposed to do, never to go through this again.
I will continue to play my part to ask the people of Southern Cameroon to take their revolution into their hands and continue the fight to liberate themselves.
I'm sorry to say, because of France's policies in Africa, in French Africa, the state of La République du Cameroon do not have any pressure on them to find a way to resolve this issue, because they are always thinking that no matter what happens, France will always be there to give them coverage.
Still ahead in this edition, we have The Devil Unmasked with Professor Emmanuel Tatamenta. We have a winner of the Nyamfuka of the Week. And we are not done until you have heard our letter to Joshua. So stay tuned, kick back, relax, and enjoy Ambazonia Calling.
We're going to jump right ahead now to the first part of our news wrap-up for the week. Here's Innocentia.
BBC Mancho, Comrade C and several other Ambazonian independence war prisoners whisked off from Kondangi concentration camp to unknown destinations are reportedly alive but badly battered, without medical care, and need serious medical attention. Meantime, over 125 prisoners of war of the roll of 300 who were disappeared following the prison riots have still not been accounted for.
Out of the more than 300 Ambazonians that disappeared out of these detention centers, La République's minister indicates they can only account for 177 Ambazonians. So the question is, where have they kept 123 of our people, our brothers? Where are they?
Many fearing that the blood-sucking BR Cameroon has executed them in remote prisons across the center and south regions.
Enter day 4 of the hunger strike, he declared.
Sisiko Ayuk Tabe and several other prisoners are on the 5th day of an intermediate hunger strike.
Calling upon the occupier, La République du Cameroon, to end its occupation of the southern Cameroons, stop the torture, stop the maiming, stop the brutal slaying of our people.
The NERA 10 leaders say they will remain on hunger strike.
This hunger strike will not end
until they have proof that the over 125 prisoners of war are alive.
Bring back to us our fellow compatriots that just disappeared out of the Kondange and BOYO concentration camps post the historic protest of the 22nd of July 2019.
Some Ambazonians in the diaspora are joining the prisoners in the hunger strike.
We want to thank all of you that have joined him,
seeking to continue to shine a spotlight on the quest for independence that has left over 10,000 Ambazonians dead over 1 million internally displaced, and tens of thousands that have fled and are fleeing across the borders to Nigeria.
My fellow people, the second reason why I'm addressing you is sad news that came out of La Republic's capital, Yaoundé. The mother, Mammy Grace, and sister, Berist, of our fellow compatriots, Comrade Chris Ano and Oliver Ano, Field Marshal, were kidnapped by Cameroon's terrorist forces in their Yaoundé residence. They should, with immediate effect, release Mammy Grace, who's 80 years of age and sick, as well as the sister of the Anus and every single Ambazonian that continues to be held captive by this terrorist government. Our quest for free Ambazonia is an unstoppable quest.
It's a gruesome murder of some strangers residents in Koro village on the 28th day of July 2019 by the wicked and infernal La Republic militants.
5 Nigerians are among 9 civilians brutally terrorized, bludgeoned, and subsequently killed a week ago Sunday by BIA terrorist forces in Kongo, MANYU state in Ambazonia's southern zone.
They came in here in the early morning of the 28th day of July, apprehending the following persons who are lying dead there on their way to their farms.
In a horrifying video that has left viewers aghast, the amateur videographer runs a live commentary introducing each victim, their origin, and profession.
This is Fred, a Northwesterner who is working on a 2-party farm here. This is Sunday John Egba, the Vice President of the Nigerian Union in Koro village, who is working and married to a Koro person here. This is Utebe Sunday, an Akwa Ibomite, working also here in Koro as a 2-party worker. This is Joseph Etem, also a Nigerian, residing and working on a farm here in Koro. Michael Joshua Etem, a Nigerian and Akwa Ibom, patron of the Nigerian Union in Koro village. Mr. Bo, a man from the Upper Bayang who is working on a 2-party farm here in Koro. Mr. Peter, also known as Pato Ranking, who is working on a 2-party farm here in Koro.
Including a harmless man who was mentally impaired.
Oh God, this is led Pa Christopher, a person who is almost half mental, who is living all alone in his own house, with no person to take care of him. They have gone and shot him dead. Papa Christopher and Koro citizen, that is the only Koro person here that has been affected here. The rest are all strangers who are residing here. This is Ogbonna John from Ebonyi State in Topadosis.
Eagle News Africa broke the story. Bamensing, prominent village in NGOKETUNJIA northern zone, has finally buried 2 of its sons, whose corpses have been held in captivity by La République du Cameroon terrorist forces. The Amber boys were reportedly killed in an ambush by La République du Cameroon terrorist forces, and their bodies abandoned at a major intersection. All attempts to pick up the decomposing bodies failed, including groups of women that pleaded with the monsters to let them bury their sons. It is only on Tuesday, when they were informed that Colonial Governor Lele Afrique would be driving through the village, that the corpses were let go for burial. Dr. Cho Ayaba has a major course reversal, acknowledging the opportunity that the Swiss-led negotiations offer. The course reversal Tuesday was acclaimed across a vast majority of Ambazonian platforms, even as his surrogates sought to focus attention, like Dr. Cho himself did, on the ability of Ambazonia's ragtag defense groups to cripple and defeat Cameroon's terrorist forces. You are listening to Ambazonia Calling, your space for educated news analysis, informed opinions and commentary towards the recognition of a free, independent Ambazonia. I am Innocent Chia. Stay with us.
Innocent is sticking around. He's got the second part of our news wrap-up for the week.
Activists across southern Cameroon are applauding people of BOYO and populations across the northern zone for boycotting the tour of the colonial governor, LEBIALEM. Riding in an armored car in a heavily armed entourage, the governor forgot that he could come and go, but any local authorities will have to deal with the consequences of disrespecting the instructions of Amber boys. Reports say the traditional and local authorities chose life over the pride of the colonial governor. Well-known activist Mark Barretta has had his foot in his mouth over the past week ever since he unpacked that he has been a megaphone of lies regarding everything that has possibly gone wayward with the Ambazonian War of Independence. Whereas some have hailed him for speaking truth, many more are not only questioning his commitment to the struggle, they are questioning his ability to discern the times and what is right for Ambazonia. Even the UK resident Mola Wonja, accused of financial racketeering, is calling on Mark Barretta to go on to ground zero and apologize to Amber boys for his misrepresentations. Sylvie Bello, founder and president of Cameroon American Council, has enjoyed a tough spot once more following an impersonation on Capitol Hill, Washington, D.C. Monday of the Takumba Female Society Group. The DC activists, together with 2 underage girls and 2 other women, all wrapped in white loins and red scarves, has yet to answer a plethora of questions, particularly on why the impersonation, why the flag of Cameroon and not that of Ambazonia. Sylvie Bello was caught in a fundraising scandal with Ivo Tapangtanku at the very beginning when it was all about a teacher's strike and the car of Dr. Fontem was torched. Cameroon's colonial regional delegate of education in Ambazonia's northern zone has issued a directive July 26 calling on principals and other school administrators to make an intermittent roll calls of all academic staff, even as they accelerate their campaign for school resumption for the 2019-2020 school year. With classes scheduled to begin a month out on September 2nd, the colonial government are throwing the kitchen sink at it, aware that they have lost the last 2 years, and all too aware that Ambazonian parents and their children have made up their minds not to sing the national anthem of Cameroon again in Ambazonia or call Biya their president any other day. Innocentia, Ambazonia Calling.
Yaoundé is playing the clock. They are buying time to avoid negotiations if they can.
If you have not heard about Operation Nakdo, know that it exists. It consists of inviting all Ambazonians who live in the diaspora to call a government official in the country where they live and to find out from them what their country is doing to end the genocide in Ambazonia. It was on the roll on Capitol Hill this week, and from out of BOYO, from out of the foot of Mount FAKO this week, there was this recording of a humanitarian worker whose only name is given as James, who absolutely stuns everyone with the extent of destruction between BOYO and Kumba, speaks to the stinking corruption within the Cameroon government that is preventing humanitarian aid workers from delivering supply to Ambazonians. Here are excerpts from that stunning conversation.
And he's also trying to get the dates, the times. He's trying to stop us from delivering humanitarian assistance. I am a humanitarian. I'm completely neutral. I understand exactly your fight, but what I want to do is ensure that the humanitarian situation is dealt with, and I will not let him or anyone else to try and politicize what is assistance to people who are really struggling. So he wants not to give shelter assistance. I am going to go and meet him on Tuesday, I hope, and tell him we will do this, whether he likes it or not, because this is what you have to do as a humanitarian. You have to be neutral. His view is that if they get your people out of the bush, they can pretend the situation is normal.
It's normal, yeah.
And I can see what he's trying to do, and I can see, okay, that's his view. That's his policy or his strategy, but I cannot, as a humanitarian person, I cannot let this affect my work. I'm not working for him.
The issue we have is they keep deceiving people that if our people come up the bush, the situation will be come back to normal. Our people can never come back from the bush because everywhere is full with military. Everywhere, and these people, they keep burning those homes and killing those people. Our people can never come back from the bush. Rather, those who are in the bush are going even further and further and trying to see if they can cross into other countries. If you check of recent, there are a lot of Southern Cameroonians that are fleeing into other countries like Ghana. Some are even struggling to enter Mexico and try to see if they can get to the US. That is the situation. Yeah. That is it. And humanitarian organizations, international recognized humanitarian organizations on the ground. My concern are these reports getting to the UN. That is the problem, because if these reports are not getting into the United Nations office, even though I know the UN is partly corrupt because a genocide starts by killing one person. But here we are talking of a situation where thousands are gone. People have died. Homes and villages have been destroyed. And the UN is quiet. Rather, the United States is even working more than the United Nations. This is appalling.
Yeah. When I drove last week, and you helped me do this with the UN mission to Kumba from Buya, many of the people that came, it was their first. The UN is afraid. They're all sitting in the hotel. They don't leave. They were crying when they saw the villages that were destroyed. There's so many villages. Basically, as you leave Buya, once you go 5-6 kilometers from Buya, almost every village is either destroyed or abandoned until almost towards Kumba. And people were shocked. That is why I'm telling you it's a good reason to publicly endorse the UN humanitarian missions. There is no political mission. I'm really sorry to tell you that I wish I could fix the problem. I wish I could send peacekeepers. I wish I could do the things that you want to do. All we can do as humanitarians is to access the ground and try and help. I fully understand your situation, and that's why you say the UN is corrupt. I think it is corrupt, but I am not corrupt, and I will tell you. I'm sitting here and looking at your mountain in Buya. I will do anything I can as a neutral person. I have to be neutral between both sides to raise attention to the humanitarian crisis. I'm sorry I cannot help more on the political side. I'll do anything I can, but I cannot take sides. My view, and I have been trying to say this to everybody, is that this is an armed conflict between two sides. And one of the ways that can be presented best is if your side accepts responsibility, accepts accountability, and accepts international humanitarian law. I know your position is very difficult, but what I want... Really, I'm a very strict talking person, right? I don't have any bullshit. I don't want to mess around. This is a tragic circumstance for everybody. But if your side can openly accept international humanitarian law and that you will respect it, including access for international humanitarian organizations, that will portray you as being a party to a conflict as opposed to a terrorist. This is what everyone wants. Everybody in Yaoundé wants to try and portray your side as terrorism or as civil unrest. But a party to a conflict is essentially a state in waiting, and you accept accountability, international accountability, which includes respect for international humanitarian law. I'm not trying to bore you with the details because I know you're focused on your crisis and your people. I don't know if your side understands that if you accept openly that you endorse international humanitarian law and humanitarians to come into your country, to Ambazonia, that it will reflect very well upon your side, and you will become considered as a party to a conflict, as opposed by law, by international humanitarian law, a terrorist side. I have to spell this out because it sounds legalistic. I'm very much aware of your circumstances, but it's vital. If you, if what you're saying matches with your actions, you must, your side must openly, publicly tell people that you respect international humanitarian law, because then you are above, way above, being considered a terrorist organization or just some civil unrest. Sorry, I'm giving you my
you are making a very you're making
open opinion.
Yeah, you're making a good point, but you need to know that international humanitarian organizations have been coming to our site or coming to our territory. They didn't start yesterday. They have been there. The Red Cross has been there. Reach Out has been there. The Aya Foundation, which is a ground foundation, is there, and even other organizations have been there, and they are still there. What the only difficulties our people are facing right now is that La République du Cameroon is also trying to organize something like that, and that is another poison coming to our people. And we cannot just fold our hands and watch La République kill our people in their thousands, burn their homes, send some to the bushes, adopt some. They are languishing in different jails, and then they come back tomorrow and say they want to give you food. They want to give you poison. So it keeps it puts us in a situation where humanitarian organizations need to be checked properly, so that they don't have to transport this poisonous substances that are given to them by Mr. Pobia's barbaric terrorist government.
I understand. Can I tell you my honest? I'm telling you. I will tell you everything truthfully. If I ever lie to you, you can send your people here to kill me. If I tell you something untrue, it's because I have the bad information. Not, I will never lie to anybody in this context. I have to be absolutely truthful. So we have big problems with La République du Cameroun. All of the organizations here to try and deliver humanitarian assistance, the government is making big problems. They don't want us to. Can I give you one example?
Yeah.
In Mumfei, the SDO, he has refused to let any humanitarian organization deliver anything like shelter assistance. So this is like tarpaulins, soap, and other assistance into the bush where people are hiding. In general, all of the organizations I coordinate are trying to get to villages, to the bush where people are hiding, and also to people who are displaced in Bamenda, in Buya, in Limbe, in Kumba, in prisons. I understand your concerns, but I don't know exactly what is being done for the prisoners.
So you cannot make a request to help the prisoners?
In general, the organizations I coordinate are focused on civilians, people who are not in prison. I've been making some very big noise about the prisoners internally, asking what we can do for them. And unfortunately, people are telling me that there's not much we can do. My boss, who is the head of the UN in the country, she is raising the issue with prisoners with the Cameroon government through the American embassy, through the British embassy and the Swiss embassy. And I don't know the conversations they're having. Like they don't tell me what they're hearing back from the government. But we don't. The organizations here are that there's not so many, and they are focused on people not in prisons. They're focusing on the villages and civilians.
You just raised an alarm on the need to respect international laws. What I want you and other organizations on the ground to understand is that French Cameroon, they have also organized themselves to sabotage the laws so that they can put it on our restoration force. Because when it comes to kidnapping, all this torture, harassment, a group has been coordinated and formed by the Tanganji.
So network was lost at this point. That's where that fascinating conversation ended as far as those of us eavesdropping, but listening and getting a little window into the mind, the evil mind of the devilish regime that is in Yaoundé.
This is the experience of Amba people when the flames of freedom fanned by truth light up the hearts of the children. There is a fire on the mountain, fire on the mountain. There is a fire on the mountain, fire on the mountain. Run, run, bring some water.
Ambazonia Calling has now fully confirmed that it was the intention of Yaoundé, the colonial regime of Mr. Biya, to negotiate only with delegates coming out of the so-called Anglophone General Conference of Christian Cardinal Tumi. The main man coordinating the activity and supported heavily by the now ex-French ambassador to the Cameroons was Eli Smith. The tentacles of this operation go beyond these two individuals, beyond the churches, the Catholic and the Protestant churches. They go beyond the Muslim community. They extend to the groups of women and to the political elite, so-called elite, of Ambazonia, the people who are in the pocket of the regime in Yaoundé. All of that has come crashing down ever since the regime saw that the French ambassador was recalled, that the hand of negotiation that was extended by Yaoundé in the hope that it will be rebuffed was taken, and now that the international community is on board, asking Yaoundé to come on, let's get to the negotiating table.
Oh, na, 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 na. The cracks. Rastaman love me. Everybody love me.
The best lesson in life has been taught by the road sign which says keep right. And if I could keep right for other things, what about my motherland?
Thou shalt not speak ill of a fellow Ambazonian. Maybe Ambazonians can adopt such a mantra.
I grew up understanding that we should not doubt our beliefs, neither should we believe our doubt.
Here is one more thing that the regime in Yaoundé is trying to do to collapse the Ambazonian resistance, destroy the chemistry between Ground Zero and the diaspora, and collapse this revolution. The Biya regime is mounting people right now to pretend that they are providing leadership from Ground Zero. With respect to hanging on to power, the Biya regime is anything but stupid. They're building this on existing divisions amongst us. The Sako versus Seseko camp, the Yaba versus the Kwanga camp. They're building this on those who continue to support Sako and those who are disgruntled by the swindling of money with respect to my trip to Boya. Those who will be stepping forward will tell you that they speak on behalf of the AMF, that they speak on behalf of the ASC, local government areas. Do not listen. You know that anyone who tries to provide that kind of leadership from Ground Zero will be killed, is already dead, or is in jail. Those chosen to run this operation on behalf of the regime will be allowed to operate in the open. They will operate in the same way as the bikers showed up in Kumba and told you that they were stopping ghost towns. The same way where demonstrations are not allowed anywhere, but people can go out on lamentation calling for peace as if they're the only ones who want peace. People of Ambazonia, keep your eyes open, as our people say, Meguna shine eye.
If you go to Moyuka, nobody they live here. If you go to Munyenge, but nobody they stay there. Everybody don't run away because of Wuru Wuru. But when we pray, oh, revival will take place in Allah. Yeah, for sure.
We need to unite in purpose. We need to drop our ego. And I want to tell Southern Cameroonians in the diaspora that stagnant water smells. We need to move from where we are and get into the same room with everyone.
The genocide in Ambazonia is along the same lines as the genocide in Rwanda. The number of victims may not be the same scale yet, thank God, but it is genocide nonetheless. For genocide is a crime of intent, not of numbers.
How can we be expecting the adversary to come to terms of talking to us when we could not talk to ourselves? Where are we going to if we do not agree?
There could be no better time than now, on what looks like the eve of our negotiations with La République du Cameroun, to look back at the lessons we learned from that extensive interview with South African negotiation experts. That roundup report of the lessons we could learn was done by Barrister Sia Jumverambe. We will get to her on the other end of the jingle of the devil unmasked.
Oh, Abba, Father, bless us. Oh, Jesus Christus, guide us. Oh, Holy Spirit, lead us on the restoration journey of our liberty. So, restoration train is our freedom train.
Welcome to our special interview segment, The Devil Unmasked, The Truth Out.
If only we had known. Shall this be one of the statements that will haunt Ambazonians when all is said and done? Hopefully not. Having access to the information provided by Mr. Brian Curran should help Ambazonians avoid such a statement. Ambazonians now know, or should know, what they are supposed to do in order to be successful in their engagement with the colonizer. The first thing we now know is that Ambazonians won't get anything done unless we rekindle broken trust.
So the first thing the opposition groups need to do is to begin to communicate with one another constructively so that they can begin to build trust amongst one another at a leadership level. They can sit down together and engage constructively to build that trust. Eventually, then they can sit down and start talking about common objectives and shared positions. And once they've done that, then they can begin to think about a negotiating strategy, because it's important that these groups that don't agree with one another have a common negotiation strategy.
No one is suggesting that Ambazonians follow blindly or hastily. However, if we've been waiting for a train and one has stopped, inviting us to jump in for destination negotiations, we need to decide if we want to get on board or if we want to hope that another train will stop. Maybe no other train will come, maybe it will. But as Brian Curran noted in the interview last week, one of the errors the Palestinians committed was not boarding the train when it pulled into the station. Until this date, they are still waiting for another train to take them to their intended destination.
Israel-Palestine. There have been opportunities, particularly during the 1990s, where the parties could have reached a resolution, but they wasted it. And, ever since 1999, the Intifada, which started in 1995, there hasn't really been another opportunity as good as those which arose initially coming out of the Oslo Accord in around about 1990, 1991.
The second thing we now know is that we will not be successful unless we determine, mandate, and rely on our best leadership.
It is absolutely critical that one has leadership and quality leadership on both sides. Where there has been successful political negotiations, very often it's because of the quality of leadership that is on both sides. Leaders who have got the ingredients and the characteristics of sound leadership. When you identify that you've got leaders of that nature, one needs to make the most of it.
It is not about who we hate or like.
You could have advisors working with your leaders, but I think, the actual negotiation you should do your own negotiations.
Not about popularity.
So you need to identify people who are good leaders, who have the qualities and characteristics of great leadership and effective negotiators. If necessary, if they need to be to have some level of training, they should, but you need to negotiate yourselves.
Not about diplomas in the pocket.
But I really do believe you need to negotiate your own future. It shouldn't be put into the hands of others.
Not about being from a particular trade or profession or group.
Others can facilitate or mediate.
It is about competence.
Not everybody is a skilled negotiator. It takes a particular type of person with a particular temperament to be a skilled negotiator. One has to be a good listener. One has to be someone who is able to build bridges.
It is also about our preparedness to negotiate and our ability to set the agenda for such negotiations, should they indeed come.
You've got to make sure that you've got all the structures around you, and you also have an environment which enables you to be able to work together intelligently in a structured way, where you have all the infrastructure that you need to be able to negotiate in a structured and successful manner.
The third thing we now know is the dire need to build true cohesion among us and to ensure that negotiations are inclusive of every Ambazonian.
Your negotiations need to be inclusive. You need to be talking to one another, because at the end of the day, they're going to be there. And if you're not talking to them, the government's going to talk to them. And the government will try and do a deal with them. So you've got two distinct groups, certainly within the group that is seeking independence as a political objective. I think it's common cause that there's not agreement between those groups, let alone the vast disagreement there is between the federalists and the independists. So you'd be shooting yourselves in the foot if you were to try to negotiate from that position, because you'd be negotiating from a position of weakness.
If we do not talk even to those we would ordinarily avoid like the plague, engage them in meaningful conversations, it is more likely than not that the colonizer will talk to them, engage them, and deepen the divisions among us, divisions that could very well result in the failure of any negotiations.
And you achieve that consensus, and you build trust, and you even agree on appointing a negotiating team of 3 or 4 people that are going to represent the interests and political desires and demands of the broader constituency of Ambazonia. I cannot overestimate the importance of engaging with constituencies, keeping people informed, keeping the constituency informed.
The fourth thing we also now know is that the choice of a mediator for negotiations equally lies in the hands of Ambazonians.
That person has to be trusted by both sides. So one party cannot appoint a mediator or even a person to facilitate the negotiations. It has to be an agreed person which both parties commit to. You could have a process where the parties agree on how a mediator is selected. And it could be a mediator not known to either party.
There is a lot of talk out there about La République du Cameroon designating Switzerland, or more precisely a Swiss NGO, as its mediator. Clearly, Ambazonians do not like this choice, for obvious reasons. What Ambazonians should therefore do is begin to identify who they would like to serve as their mediator, for as the expert Mr. Curran explained, each party to a negotiation can very well have their own mediator if they so choose.
Alternatively, what sometimes happens is you have 2 mediators. So both parties can appoint a mediator. And mediators would have the experience and the ability to be able to work together. A mediator plays a much more active role than what a facilitator does. The mediator is more inclined to get involved, to meet with parties, sometimes separately, trying to build trust also between the mediator and the parties, trying to identify levels of potential movement between the parties, but working separately and then bringing them together at appropriate moments and managing the process in a much more sort of interactive way and an intrusive way sometimes than what a person who facilitates negotiation would do.
A fifth, had we known, is knowledge of the fact that we need to get ahead of the game, get up to speed, start talking, discussing, exchanging notes, ideas on how to get negotiations going. Start strategizing on possible negotiators, facilitators, and mediators. In effect, start building the capacity that we dreadfully lack.
Obviously, if one is going to go into negotiations, then there needs to be a huge amount of preparation, because very often the hard work happens prior to the actual negotiations on either side, working separately, consulting with their experts, setting up structures, ensuring that there are proper channels of communication.
These exchanges, interactions, preparations, and strategizing are not and should not be deemed as actual negotiations.
How do we know that the government on the other side is ready and going to be willing to negotiate? Well, you don't.
The sixth thing we now know is that it is not simply because La République du Cameroun says, or might have said, that it wants to negotiate, that it will actually negotiate in good faith.
Obviously, governments are more powerful, they're cohesive, they can abuse processes.
Yaoundé may in fact be using the much talked about negotiations as a strategy to find yet more ways of crushing Ambazonia. Ambazonians must therefore remain very alert, fully engaged, and ready to demonstrate that they will not give up the revolution until they get to their intended destination, BOYO.
You also need to be lobbying and working with the international community, because the international community can put pressure on the leadership, political leadership of La République to engage constructively in negotiations. So that environment has to be ripe as well, and there needs to be that political will on that side, on the side of the government of Cameroon, to negotiate in good faith.
Perhaps the most important thing that we now know is that Ambazonians must not rush into negotiations unprepared.
You know, the first thing is they should not rush into negotiations. They must make sure that they are ready to negotiate. And we've already spoken about what that means. And certainly what it means in the first instance, that the leaders and the groups are able to work together. Because if you don't, I promise you, your divisions will be exploited. There's no doubt about that at all. So just in terms of your negotiating team and structure, you need to speak with one voice.
While this is indeed an important point, it should not be used as a pretext for delay.
A time arrives when a government realizes that there is no alternative but to good faith, constructive engagement. And that's when the iron is hot. One needs to strike and enter into the negotiations at that point in time.
As already noted, the window of opportunity, the train that has arrived at the station, may not wait for too long, and once gone, may never return to the station.
There's sort of a pre-negotiation, confidence-building measures undertaken by both sides. There needs to be dialogue. We spoke about dialogue. There needs to be talks about talks and about building confidence between parties so that you can create that environment. And I believe one thing that should be pushed for is the release of political prisoners to enable them to participate in the negotiations. So that is something that should happen during the talks about talks process, that I believe should happen in any context, any environment, before you actually go into the negotiation. The political leadership are willing to begin to speak to one another, because no one's going to win the violent conflict. And there's not a better alternative. So that's the one time when parties turn to negotiations.
Another opportunity may never come, especially if the international community moves on and our people give up from suffering too much and believing that all their sacrifices are in vain. In other words, we are in a complex situation where we must make haste slowly
My strongest words of advice would be, don't rush into this. Don't go in until you're absolutely ready.
Knowing that the world will not come to a complete halt and wait until we decide to crawl to the next stage of this liberation struggle, which could very well be a negotiation table. This is Sia Jimvo Ambe for Ambazonia Calling.
It started like a joke and I smiled. From Meme to Momo, we said no violence. Now I know not how to smile, 'cause my loved ones are gone. There is no place to call home. Our homes have been burnt. I am homeless in my homeland. There is no place to call my home. Homeless, homeless, homeless in my homeland. When are we going to have a dialogue? We have buried more than enough. Nothing heals the past like time. When are we going to have a dialogue? We've been marginalized enough. You may fool some people sometime. You cannot fool them all the time. Homeless, homeless. I am homeless in my homeland.
Leaders of the constituent organization of the Southern Cameroon's Liberation Council, the SCLC, held a meeting in Maryland, USA on Wednesday, July 30, 2019, with a delegation of 3 women representing the so-called Southwest-Northwest Women's Task Force, SYNOD, to examine issues relating to the resumption of schools in southern Cameroon. At the end of the deliberations, which held at the request of the women who had traveled in from the Cameroons, the SCLC charged them to bring back to their membership in the Cameroons as well as to their sponsors one message: schools in Ambazonia are not ongoing right now as a result of a boycott. They are not ongoing as a result of the insecurity, the genocide, and the ongoing war. And it would be irresponsible to resume schools under such situations of insecurity. The SCLC reiterated that the resumption of schools will constitute part of the negotiated settlement. It will not be dealt with on a piecemeal or an ad hoc basis.
The question is not, should children go to school? The question should be, can children go to school? Can they go to school? The answer is no, because there is simply no security.
Speaking of schools resuming in Ambazonia under continued annexation by La République du Cameroun, here's Divine Anje, who says the whole thing, the entire thing, including the current curriculum in Ambazonia, these are colonial jokes and they should come to an end as soon as possible.
Some students in Ambazonia have lost 3 years of formal schooling. Their misfortune is a windfall for the hypocrites who are pretending that they care more for the education of Ambazonian children than the very parents of the children. The hypocrites sadly include the United Nations, whose most important duty is peace and security, but too much of a coward to fight for that which its core mandate is for. The United Nations system in the Cameroons is using children as human shields. It is pushing Ambazonian women at great risk to their own lives and personal safety to stick their heads out and call for a return to schools, without granting them the protections of diplomatic immunity that UN staff enjoy, and without providing them with the armored cars La République governors shuttle in across Ambazonia. The education of children in Ambazonia will not be the Trojan horse the United Nations system in Yaoundé seeks to use in order to unravel Ambazonia's quest for the restoration of independence. The right to education, not for children but for everyone, is an important human right indeed, but it is listed as number 26 in the ranking of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. At least 25 other rights, more important to the point of being prioritized over the right to education, matter more. And the rights prioritized the most include the right to equality, that is, between Ambazonians and Cameroonese, and the right to dignity, ranked topmost in that declaration. the right to life, liberty, and security of the person, which is ranked third, as well as the right to a nationality, in this case, the Ambazonian nationality we seek to restore, which is ranked in the 16th position, 10 points ahead of the right to education. An independent Ambazonia will dedicate immense resources to provide catch-up education opportunities under education at all times and in all age groups to our citizens. Unlike in La République, where at 25 years they were turning students away from the university, Ambazonia would admit students at 99 years and including the hour before they retire to their graves. The schools that teach our children geography, history, French, and English literature, and French literature are a colonial joke. And that joke ends with the end of the colonial experiment Ambazonians are fighting to demolish. This is Divine Angie for Ambazonia Calling.
Ramagade, legede, oh, Ramosantala, brozagade, Lika brazandala, Jesus. Papa Godo, intervene for we, do for we, as you do for the Israelites. The way who they suffer, in the life so you don't forget we. Papa Godo, intervene for we. Orphans are crying, widows are crying, fatherless children are crying, the less privileged are crying. Oh, may we pray. Oh, may we pray. Oh, northwest and southwest, when I come together, may we pray. Oh, prayer is a key. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, let me pray. Oh, let me pray. Oh, let me pray.
The people of Ambazonia cannot wait for Ambazonia to be recognized as a nation, a sovereign entity, a member of the community of nations holding a seat at the United Nations. It is this issue of recognition that keeps most Ambazonians up at night, and it keeps the monk from Ibalikumato up at night. Here he goes, calling on the world to recognize Ambazonia.
There are people, nations, states, countries around this world with less than 1 million people.
States are said to be active subjects of international law.
Some states, nations, countries with less than 1,000 square miles.
How can we tell that an entity is a state within the meaning of international law?
From the viewpoint of the world, the proverbial global community, these are legitimate people, nations, states, and countries. The question then is, what really makes a people, a nation, a state, or a country?
It is usually considered that 3 elements characterize a state: a territory, a population, and an effective government. Those 3 elements are notably recalled by the Montevideo Convention on the Rights and Duties of States, a convention concluded during the 7th International Conference of American States in 1933. The convention is said to codify the criteria for statehood and to codify also the declarative theory of statehood.
What, in a very practical and common sense way, qualifies anyone anywhere to assume this position?
We all know intuitively what a state is, but have you ever met with a state? When a new entity pretends to be a state because it meets the 3 criteria for status, other existing states may decide to recognize it as a state.
Intellectuals who spend a lifetime studying, writing, and publishing on this subject would refer you to the libraries of the world to find an answer. But the man on the street or the woman on the street with no access to libraries and no ability to peruse relevant literature, would be at a loss trying to describe or define, even just for themselves, the thing that makes them a people, a nation, a state, or a country.
Article 73 of the UN Charter confirmed and expanded the concept of the sacred trust to all, I quote, territories whose peoples have not yet attained full measure of self-government, end of quote.
So what is the point? As a people, as citizens of a geographical area we call Ambazonia, as 8 million humans, as a state with a functional constitution and government way back in 1954, as a member of a small group of territories legally trusted to former colonial entities, Britain in this instance, we the people of Ambazonia firmly believe it is more than time for the global community to recognize Ambazonia as a people, a state, a nation.
State recognition can be used when a new state appears on the world stage. But if used, it can be used only once in relation to the entity concerned. State recognition is a single bullet gun. State recognition is a discretionary act in the sense that there is no obligation or duty to recognize a new state as a state. State recognition is discretionary also in the sense that it can be done whenever the state recognizing sees it fit.
Long live the people of the state of British Southern Cameroons, now known as Ambazonia, a country legally delineated by international boundary stones, a fact that has been with us all this while, a fact that is here to stay. This is the monk from Ibalikumato for Ambazonia Calling.
I want to advise Southern Cameroonians to stop analyzing and making conclusions on surface value. When we hear stuff, and the Quran is very clear on that, on chapter number 43, it says that when you hear something and you don't understand it, ask those who know. Ask those who know. I'll call on Southern Cameroonians to have the patience on talking to those who went to Switzerland for whatever they went for before making conclusions. I think it is very important that we have a recognition. And I said implicitly, the mere fact that Switzerland is coming up to say, I want to mediate, the question is, what do you mediate for? You mediate between people. So I think it's very important. What we must do, we must not go on that table from any point of weakness. We should not be afraid also to negotiate. And this brings us back to the first thing you asked me, unity. I want all Southern Cameroonians who are supposed to be on the table to be on that table. I want all Southern Cameroonians who are supposed to be marshalling ideas and efforts right now to be marshalling ideas and efforts right now towards that table. We should not scatter our efforts. I think we should bring them together.
Drum roll, please. And welcome to our Nyamfoka of the Week segment. We don't do foolish, but when there are capital fools out there, we make it our duty to find them, and every week we crown one of them the Nyamfoka of the Week. We've gotten to that point on the program where we must turn our attention now to a review of the kings and queens of foolish for this week. Here's Veronique Ntumfoyn.
Finishing in third place this week is a woman who is decided on getting into the Hall of Shame. After winning a bronze and a silver medal already in this Nyamfoka competition, this week again, she shared emails with friends who pretended that somehow she was involved with the drafting of a resolution before the U.S. Senate. Sylvie Bello is her name, and her act this week was a follow-up of the fraud last week of bringing La République citizens to the U.S. Capitol, dressed like Ambazonians in Takumbangia. for masquerading as Ambazonians in order to win a fast entry into senators' offices on the Hill. Sylvie Bello and her fake Takumbang of La République are this week's third place finishers for the crown of shame, the Nyamfuka of the week.
Nyamfuka them all.
It is not often that Radio France International helps Amnesty International to put its foot in its mouth. They just did. The facts are not in doubt. The riots at BOYO and Kondege prisons were led by Ambazonian prisoners of war. You would not tell if you were listening to Radio France International. Relying on a recent report by Amnesty International, Radio France International managed to put the riots about Maurice Kamto and his jailed supporters. They focused on female members of Kamto's party who were briefly arrested and tortured before being released following the elections last year, while thousands of Ambazonians suffered torture in jail as prisoners of war. They managed once more to call for the release of Maurice Kamto and all of his supporters without once mentioning Ambazonian prisoners of war, for mistaking the tree for the forest, for regarding Ambazonians as animals, and speaking up only on human rights violations of Maurice Kamto's supporters. Radio France International and Amnesty International are this week's runners-up for the crown of shame, the Nyamfuka of the week.
Nyamfuka them all.
Claiming the crown of shame this week is a man who is so indifferent to the plight of others that he seems to have lost all feelings of empathy.
Chris Arnold say they kidnap ye mommy and ye sister. For which place they do they say na for Yaoundé. Chai, I would not really take time for the debate, that kind of thing. Is that not sufficient? That one not for law, they call and say confession, voluntary confession. Nobody no push it for confess.
Even as the family of Chris Anu remains terrified by the abduction of his 80-year-old mother and younger sister, Digimas relished the moment.
Chris Anu only come for una for tell una if ye parents, if you move am from LEBIALEM, take and go keep am for Yaoundé, it tell una who Chris Anu don't always the work for.
He issued an audio urging Ambazonians not to believe the story and opining that any Ambazonian who did should belong in the Guinness record of foolishness.
Una really check say Guinness record, some person they win Guinness record for being stupid. Ambazonians, una don't take una own level of stupidity to a fault.
It takes a man begotten of foolishness, born into stupidity, who is consumed by so much hatred for a fellow comrade in the struggle that he is willing to laugh at the harm done to innocent family members of the man he hates.
Una the worker they make that noise, say Christian or say una they really make una self big idiot, super idiot.
When the abduction of Ambazonians by La République gives you joy, you have to be Digimas. The man who this week again returned with a vengeance to the top place finish and is the winner of the crown of shame, the Nyamfuka of the week.
Nyamfuka them all.
This is Veronique Vertimfe for Ambazonia Calling.
The cracks, yeets on the beat. Tu es bello, mon joli bébé. Tu es bello, African bébé. If you do me well, I go do you well. If you do me well, I go do you well. When I hustle get galon, I go open your salon. I go take you, go come. You go see life come. Sumo. Won't figure but I'm in a patron. Sumo. Won't figure but I'm in a patron. I love you, my baby more.
We still have Big Mob Corner right ahead. Don't go anywhere.
Even if I enter Fungata, I go that so come out. Because of money, them say I be uncapable. As we see we so, our love will be unbreakable. Love my baby, this one and all. Love my baby, this one and all.
This is a lesson that every Ambazonian should know by heart from real politics. The world won't roll over just to please the heart to satisfy in the ranks of our people. Those who choose to be spoilers will be free to do as they please.
I recognize the fact that even those I consider to be egoistic or to be selfish, I recognize the fact that the intent is good. People simply think I have the best route to Boya, I have the shortest way, the easiest way. I recognize all that.
The search for a completely neutral country will never be successful because there is no such thing as a perfectly neutral country to serve as mediator.
We should trust in our cause that is embedded in truth and it's God ordained, and we should hope for the best while expecting challenges.
Our job is to ensure that the negotiations work for what we seek and that our leaders and negotiating team do not sign onto any deal that falls short of outright independence for our homeland. In other words, our destiny is in our hands, not in the hands of the mediator.
Where is the war in southern Cameroon? Is the war at La République? No. So who has crossed borders, La République du Cameroon? They need to ask La République du Cameroon to cease fire, because who also drew first blood? La République du Cameroon. So you can ask someone defending to stop violence.
The job of Ambazonians today is to make the Swiss-led process be the equivalent of the Comprehensive Peace Agreement, whose implementation by the United Nations culminated in the independence of South Sudan in July 2011.
Our youth demo, they can't finish. Our boys demo, they don't finish. From Manfred to Boya, from Bamenda to Southwest, bloodshed every day, oh, killing every day. People they die every day, like say they been a chicken. My people lay, prayer is the key. Oh, may we pray, oh. Make we pray, oh, make we pray, make we pray, oh, make we pray, make we pray. Ramagade, legede, oh, Ramosagala, Rosagade, make we pray, Mika Brazandala, Jesus, make we pray.
The colonial government of Mr. Biya is using religious intolerance, religious extremism as a pretext to wage a brutal war in the northern parts of his country. But he's brought that over to Ambazonia as well, exploiting communities in areas like Kambe and Wum and trying to turn Ambazonians against each other. As Barrister Sia Jumverambe says in this report, it is important for both Muslim and Christian communities and other religious communities as well to not become pawns in the hands of this colonial occupier.
Religious intolerance and fundamentalism that especially takes away or endangers life is indeed a deep, dark evil, and the fight against it a legitimate fight. However, the BOYO regime has clearly used religious divides and the fight against Boko Haram to advance its bloodthirstiness and other nefarious agenda. Killing innocent civilians up north, including women and children, using equipment provided by the West to fight Boko Haram, to fight Ambazonians instead, and now pitting Muslim herdsmen, the same people it would refer to in a heartbeat as dangerous religious fundamentalists, against non-Muslim Ambazonian farmers and villagers in places such as Wum and Kambe in the northern zone of Ambazonia to advance its war against Ambazonia. It seems on one given day, Muslims are only good enough for target practice, but on another day, they are a key strategic element in the regime's war against Ambazonia. This begs the question as to what, if any, is the level of awareness of the Muslim population to this ping-pong game that the regime is playing with it. Is there any chance that we might see a wave of anti-Larguji Cameroon reaction from that population, similar to what we are seeing with some of the Bamileke population who've turned against the regime and are threatening to break away from the so-called unitary state? This also begs an even bigger question as to whether or not a wave of anti-Larguji Cameroon reactions from religious groups and or ethnicities within Larguji Cameroon favors or disfavors Ambazonia's restoration of independence quest. Some have argued that such a wave would only serve to dilute or diminish the Ambazonia quest, taking focus of especially the international community away from its uniqueness and gravity, given that it would be categorized and treated by the international community as just another problem in a part of Larguji Cameroon's internal problems that can and should be solved through some sort of national conference or dialogue. Others have argued that such a wave is very welcome instead, as it would cause a total upheaval of the territory, set Larguji Cameroon into panic and crisis mode, and that in order for Larguji Cameroon to respond to such widespread crisis, it would have to take its demonic, bloodthirsty eyes off Ambazonia, release its genocidal grip, and by so doing, allow Ambazonia time and space to organize itself, consolidate its gains, especially regain full control of its territory, thereby rendering it a much stronger party at any possible negotiation table. The task for Ambazonians, however, is not to spend too much time debating which of these positions carries the day. Rather, our task is to stay focused on our course, while nevertheless tossing keen side glances at these cracks and potential eruptions in Larguji Cameroon and seeking ways to maintain good relations with these other aggrieved parties. After all, Larguji Cameroon's cup of tea is not our cup of tea. However, if the tea gets too hot and injures the beast, it can only make our bagging of the beast much easier. This is Sia Jimbo Ambe for Ambazonia Calling.
Oh, nah. Oh, nah, the cracks again. Oh, nah, baby, my love for you, nah, baby girl, I say with you, I'm just surprised. My love for you, girl, I know if it take you out of sight. Baby girl, I do anything for you, eh. I do anything. Baby girl, I do anything for you, eh. Baby girl, I do anything for you, eh. Everything. Baby girl, I do anything for you, eh. I do anything for you, eh. Baby girl, I do anything for you, eh.
Ambazonia will be developed not by those our parents call the long crayons, not those empty big book people who call themselves elites, but by the army of hard-working citizens willing to roll up their sleeves and get dirty.
The foreign and local NGOs and journalists suddenly crusading for schools' resumption are not doing so out of altruism and would be hard put to deny the charge of hypocrisy and self-interest.
It is now 1 year and 9 months since Mr. Biya declared war on Ambazonia. And in the face of what is a sickening genocide, the atrocious mass slaughter of innocent civilians, Amber Boys, volunteer self-defenders of the homeland, despite paying a big price in human life and completely outmanned, outgunned, out-equipped by the colonial forces, they continue to send the same message of defiance to the colonial occupier.
Amba no retire and Amba no overtire. Many men when I don't change military them, when I don't bring people them for China, when I don't bring people them for China, when I don't bring people them for Chad.
You can hire and deploy all the mercenaries you want from Chad, from China, from God alone knows where else. As for Amber Boys, we don't get tired. We don't have backup. We won't give up. Employ your vast resources in making whatever war you want to make against Ambazonia. You will find Amber Boys equal to the task of defending the homeland.
Since the days of John the Baptist, the kingdom of God suffered violence. Only the violent one takes it by force. You're underground king. Boom. You the cry, about what the cry. Don't tire, about what why.
Women are the crying, crying. We are the crying, crying. About what they crying, crying. We the crying. Una free me, women are the crying, crying. We are the crying, crying. We the crying. Una free me, women are the crying, crying. We are the crying, crying. We the crying. Una free me.
Sick and tired of this, like Republic, una free. Amango today inside, pay no the free. We president on the side, say, oh, man, of yay. Grand ambition, fuck that slogan, no yay. Presido, the pay, jaga jaga. Una take all things, the we for scatter scatter. They need 102 students for Senate address. Una select 2 Anglo-Votes, escape address. Bia, Yang, Dijon, prison. Escape who know why man show BBC, they for prison. They don't some all we then start for colors Anglo-Fools. Fuck up the government, we ain't tools. Minister for communication, no fit talk good English. Southern Cameroon independence, that's my wish. No good third roads, no seaports, no light, no water, no airports. President, you overget fake promises. Wait to happen, failing yours, you bring us diseases. But men are the cry, we are the ask why. You don't come for that chair, you don't go shake, you go die.
Women are the crying, crying. We are the crying, crying. About what they crying, crying. We the crying. Una free me, women are the crying, crying. We are the crying, crying. We the crying. Una free me.
La Republique will not choose our leaders. If they want Seseko, whom we love very much, to intercede between La Republique and Ambazonia, let them release Seseko and his group. We cannot have our leader in jail. When Nelson Mandela was in jail, there were people outside working for him. When he came out of jail, he took the torch. It's going to be the same. Nobody is indispensable in this revolution. People are down there, they are being killed, and you people sit here in your luxurious houses and you think that you can just talk about this revolution. Go down there and get a gun and go stay in the bush and fight. The people in ground zero, kudos to you. So I think that we are going astray by fighting for the stick and letting the snake run away. Let us put our hands together on the stick and kill the snake together.
Ambazonia Calling. You are in the heart of the news shrine. Call us the Calacuta Republic of commentary, opinion, and editorials.
Welcome to Big Mob Corner. We heard back from many of you after we aired the first segment of Big Mob Corner. And many of you said you thought Big Mob Corner has got to be a Pidgin English segment. Be careful what you wish for. This is going to be a Pidgin English language segment. It's going to be short because so many of those who listen to this show do not understand Pidgin English. Here we go with the first edition in Pidgin English.
Oh yeah, I hear some people say Sakona the most popular guy we will get for this revolution. I hear na yao, make man no call me fine palava, I beg una. But na serious matter oh. I hear say na he make Oga Seseko from Ngata vex, so te sack Sako by decree. Then he form number 2 interim governor, put Jerima for before. The other story where they upside no be true. Oga Seseko no be compromise. Na lie. He no go hunger strike because Sako no gree comot. Na say power sweet time no day. And if strong man want, if he rule from Gata. I beg una, I beg, make una no jealous Siseko. Una no dey see Maurice Kamto the rule from Gata, make una put Siseko for down. Man wey call him name again, go see wetin Obasanjo go do for you. Make I no talk lie. That palava rule from Gata dey worry, no be small worry. If you dey in Gata, you get phone, you get computer, you dey sign decree. Wey man wey dey Ambazonia sef no fit try that kind thing. What did that one mean? Make them not tell me say na La Republique dey put credit, buy airtime, put data for phone. If La Republique wan sabi all thing wey leader from Gata dey do, wetin hard for take a phone. Make I comot Gata small. This will leader dem o. Una don hear say country dem for this ground. America say e go dey for negotiation. United Kingdom say even if e no dey for Fumban, e go dey for this negotiation for Switzerland. Canada join them for warm up. United Nations dey for inside. All that 27 countries dem for European Union say dem no fit dey outside. Even African Union wey sabi drag skin like na Nyamangoro don wake up from sleep say e too go dey for negotiation. Na glad this where I for glad. My skin wan sweet calm. Na where I hear Tori Baje, Jomba Akuro wey consortium dem say they no want negotiation with Switzerland. Na so too from Goji Dinka, Pa Augustin Dangam, Yerima for Siseko dem talk. Na iwe I dey ask say, na me I no sabi count? Or me I count country dem plenty so people dey tell me say na that's what Switzerland dey. I think say na Yaba don count 2 times. First time wey count, a move letter talk say e no dey. Before cock wan sing for sharp morning time, e don change waka. E talk now say e welcome the matter. No be I don tell una say leader dem dey change waka. For talk true, I tired this with yeye leader dem all. Wetin dem wan sef? Una wan write placard, una sing song dem. Tell United Nations, United States, United Kingdom, make them organize negotiation with La Republique. Then all thing don ready so tey dem talk say negotiation go dey for Switzerland. Una change waka how? Una wan make na pikin for God Yesu Christo he sef make e come sit down for that negotiation before una go talk yes? Abeg, make una no exaggerate. People dey die for ground zero. Una dey there dey high like garri. We wan make una fix skin. Una go Switzerland, una for outside negotiation go dey, we no care. Make una carry una big book go there. Win La Republique for negotiation table. Deliver we Ambazonia. We want make Ambazonia born na for table for negotiation. Make una no dey make like una go promise we Ambazonia only after the second coming for we Master Jesus Christ. Na order dey give una. We don tire this una koba dog far big pass you. Make una go negotiation. Deliver we Ambazonia before thunder strike una all. Now wait yourself. Make I run before them catch me for here. Country people, na me I dey tell una say tori dey time short. My belle no be store. Na me, una carry kiss every Sunday for Big Mob Corner. As una sabi, my mama be give me name say Lambert Mbom. And na for Ambazonia Calling wey I throw away the tori so.
What happens when citizens from across the globe who do not want war, who do not want genocide, what happens when they gather in one place? Well, they chant anti-war songs. They call out against regimes that are waging war around the world. This week, it was the turn of the Biya regime being called out to let Ambazonia go. Here is the Free Ambazonia chant that erupted as war resistors gathered for a photo op.
This is Ambazonia Calling.
Because you have your army of occupation out in West Cameroon, you believe that when the people will rise, even if you took the whole of the French army and added to yours, you will never bring them down.
And I call on all Cameroon soldiers to lay down their arms within Ambazonia and to turn their arms against the very system that has made them slaves in the land of their birth.
For more stories from around the world, go to the World Wide Web at themissionstribune.com, compassfreepress.com, and africafreedomnetwork.com.
Here is our letter to Joshua.
Dear Joshua, the newest World Economic Update has more than bad news for your bread and sardine republic. According to economists, Njanga Republic continues to be hammered by severe, bad financial and economic weather, an abysmal human rights record that even Human Rights Watch cannot cover up for, even when they omit an entire chapter on your S-hole country. Njanga Republic occupies a miserable top position on trafficking in children, which, thanks to the Golden Statue, the Secretary General of the United Nations managed to omit from a critical report this week. Then, Amnesty International lent a helping hand to their friends at Human Rights Watch by making Kamto supporters and fellow jailbirds the heroes of the protest by Ambazonian prisoners of war. Every budget line in the books at the French Treasury in Gola is flashing red. How else, with economic sabotage from all these ambazozos, the obligation to invest in the war effort from out of nothing, the continued looting of what is left of Njanga Republic by members of the Ali Baba and 40 Thieves Makalapati, although down and almost out from what some call a terminal coal, all the roads from Gola no longer lead to Europe, where anti-Sardina Bass terrorists are waiting in every nook and cranny to rain rotten eggs and tomatoes in case they don't find the hard rocks they need to heat Nkunkuma with. Outside of the village, the sick son of his father from Vomuka has nowhere to lay his head. A friend of mine told me the other day to offer you a suggestion as to where you could find true rest, true healing. As a good friend of yours, I was all ears, even a little excited that I would be able to offer you something of a cure for the inevitable. My friend is not your friend. I hope you understand that because his suggestion of where you could find rest, that one came like a shocker. He said, well, you could tell Nkunkuma whatever, but if you insist, my friend says you will find pure, perfect peace and rest, 8 feet deep, in some hole. While it is true that I don't like you very much, I have tried very hard not to sell you the rope with which you would want to hang from that mango tree just where they dump that refuse outside Etudi Palace. Even haters at the electric company have made sure that there is no electricity in the transformers you have been threatening to kiss. Everyone is still working for Nkunkuma, it seems. I really don't know for you. But when death starts claiming those who served in your inner circle, people like Prime Minister Odontol, like the general from down Bayangi land, then death is sending a signal that it is starting to approach you in slow motion. So slowly and so surely it is unstoppable. Like in one of those Dracula movies where you kill the zombies but they keep getting up and walking steady towards you. It's already a miserable world, Joshua, before you turned it into even more misery for millions. You wonder why there's no sympathy for you? Well, half will do.
From our studios here in Washington, D.C., our producer is Jeff McCoy. Our music today is from Ken Wanaku, the monk from Balikumato, William Ford, an ambassador of blessed memory, Eric Matisse on the web at soundimage.org, and Prince Ajwa Alemanji of Ajam Sonic Kitron, USA. Ambazonia Calling is a joint production of Africa Freedom Network, the Missions Tribune, and Compass Free Press. You can find us on the web at www.themissionstribune.com, www.compassfreepress.com, and www.africafreedomnetwork.com. Next Sunday is another day. Until then, keep the spirit, keep the faith, keep up the fight for justice and independence for Ambazonia. Stay Amba strong.